Well, once again, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kyle Thomas, and I want to welcome you to the State Examination System release tutorial for the Louisiana release. I'm joined today by Alejandra Krasnow and Lindsay Schmidt, two colleagues of mine in the Business Services Unit here over at CSBS. And we're very excited to be here with you today and want to give you a quick rundown of all the different features, changes, enhancements that we've made in the Louisiana release. So hopefully you can all see our screen. Just a couple housekeeping items here. Like usual, we are going to be minimizing the background, or to minimize the background noise, we're going to keep all participants on mute. Similarly to previous calls, questions and comments will be taken through the chat feature, but if you want to speak up and ask a question directly, if it's just maybe too difficult to put in the chat feature, feel free to use your raise your hand session. I'll show you a slide on that in a second, how to activate that feature. If you do raise your hand, we have the ability to unmute your line, and then you can ask the question and maybe have a dialogue with us. We have a fairly short agenda for today, and I don't expect this tutorial to take the full hour, so we will have plenty of time for Q&A at the end of the presentation. That'd be a great time to click that hand raise button if you have a question and get the question out on the table for us. But if all else fails, send that chat to all participants and we'll keep monitoring that as we go. Lastly, as with all of our tutorials, we are going to be recording this one, so we can send you out a link and the slide deck later if you happen to miss it, or if you happen to have something come up in the middle of the meeting. Just know that you can catch the rest of it on the recording, and then that's also shareable to your colleagues in your department. So with those housekeeping items out of the way, the next one I mentioned earlier is just raising your hand. Next to your participant name, there's going to be a little palm symbol. You should be able to click that, which sends a message to our host to unmute your line, at which point we'll unmute you. You can speak your question, and once we've answered your question, we can unmute you. Like I said, don't be afraid to use that option. It's certainly a good one, and I want to encourage you to use that as you need to. So let's go to what's included in the Louisiana release. As you know, we release SES, or we release enhancement updates on a regular basis every couple months or so, and each time we label them with a state name, territory name, or Commonwealth name. This one happens to be the Louisiana release. In this release, we have 24 enhancements, new features. Most of them came from end user feedback. So on the exam side, which we're calling the supervisory activity side, we have 11 new or improved agency-facing features, and 3 on the company side. So we'll do our best to highlight both of those, or all those categories for you. And then on the complaint side, we've got 9 on the agency side, 9 new features on the agency side, and 1 new feature on the company side. So we're going to discuss and demo today for you the following items. We're going to show you the specific enhancements we've made to the user enrollment process, or excuse me, the company user enrollment process. We got a lot of feedback in company surveys and in our agency outreach that we've been doing here the last couple months that the company enrollment process, or what we were calling company onboarding process, is difficult. And it was cumbersome for companies to get through. That was where maybe I would say the largest or the lion's share of the negative feedback about the system has been coming. And so we've got a long list of improvements that we're making to the user enrollment process, and Lindsay's going to show this here in a minute, but I just want to tell you that everything you see here today is not the full set of features that we'll be releasing to improve this set of functionality. In other words, we're releasing some of what we've done now in the Louisiana release, and the next release, called the Georgia release, is going to contain a lot more significant and robust changes to this process that I think will make the company enrollment, or what we were calling company onboarding, much, much easier and much more efficient. So if you don't see something today and you knew that you provided that feedback, know that we're working on it, especially if it relates to that enrollment process, and we're just not able to get all of that in this release. We had to hold some of it for the Georgia release. Then I'm going to take over. I'm going to talk about some new designs around the scope feature, especially when you're establishing or setting your new scope for an exam. We got some feedback that was very click intensive, and the feedback came in that it was hard to know which areas for review to add to a particular exam to get all your core items. So I've got we've got a new design to show off, and then we've got some new help documents in the references section that I'm going to highlight for you. I'm also going to talk to a minor improvement to the loan review screen. We had a very common sense feedback item come in from a regulator, and we'll show you the improvement we made there. And then Alejandra is going to take us home and talk about the new file sharing link that agencies can provide on the loan request screen, and how companies can now export their information request list. That's a long-awaited item for companies who've been asking for that really since we got into production. So with that, I think I'll maybe turn it over to Lindsay here in a second, but just remind you that all release notes for our releases are available at www.csbs.org/about-SES. The link is there on the screen, and all the release notes, the release tutorials link out to them as well once the recordings are polished up and posted. So go there if you have any questions about exactly what else is included in this release. So with that, I think I'm going to hand it over to Lindsay to take us through these company user enrollment changes.
Great. Hi, everyone. As Kyle mentioned, I'm going to be talking you through some of the improvements that we made to the company enrollment process. The first being, we're going to work from left to right here, is the rebranding of actually what we're calling this process. So many of you know this as onboarding, or sometimes it's referred to as company onboarding. It's that process where you have to create that first company user for purposes of the company responding to an exam or responding to a complaint. We're now calling that company user enrollment. We feel like it more accurately describes what's happening. And so we're going to be referring to this process moving forward as company user enrollment, or sometimes you'll hear us just say company enrollment. Another thing that we're putting into this release is the ability to remind. An agency user can send reminders to company users that they've sent a enrollment request to. And so that was common feedback where, the agencies were going through the process of enrolling a user, and then they just didn't hear from the user for a while. And so the agencies requested a way to send reminders so that the company is able to kind of pick it up on their end and do what's required in order to log in and get going on their exam or get going on their complaint. And so I will show that as a part of a demo in just a moment. Moving over to the green shaded boxes here, another enhancement that we put in is the ability, what we're calling quick enrollment. And I will show exactly what I mean by that in a demo as well. It's essentially a time saver. It's going to allow you to see the NMLS users that are put in as contacts on the company ME1 form in NMLS. And it would allow you to actually quickly enroll one of those users. Essentially, you click a button and it presents you with the screen where you would create that user. And it just saves you some time entering in the user's name, the user's email, and the user's phone number. So that was just really a time saver there, but I'll show you exactly what that looks like as a part of the demo. Another enhancement here that we're pretty excited about is email consolidation. And so how it works today is when you go through the process of enrolling that company user, they currently are getting 2 emails from the system. One is from our single sign-on, which is called Okta. The other one is from the actual SES system, welcoming them to the system, and it provides them with some helpful links to that's meant to help them get started with the process. And early feedback indicated that those 2 emails were confusing. Users were not sure which one to go to actually take action. And so we were able to consolidate those emails into one. So moving forward after this release, company users, also agency users, if any agency users are being created by admins, they're only going to get a single email from us. And I have an example of what that email looks like in the next slide. Another email notification that we were, again, looking forward to talking with you about, because we do think this is going to make a positive impact, is you will now get an email notification when the company user has completed the enrollment process. And it's sent to the agency user who initiated the enrollment process for that company user. And so as many of you are aware, you are unable to send your information requests for exams or your information requests for complaints until the company has completed that onboarding process and has logged in and assigned those appropriate contacts. And so it was essentially, the way that it works now is it's a waiting game. You're just kind of going in there and checking to see if those contacts have been assigned. Now with this release, you'll get an email notification when that's done, which will be your prompt to log in on your end as the agency user and continue on and send those information requests over. And I have an example of that email on the next slide as well. So let's take a look here. So the notification that you have on the left is the example of the new consolidated email. So as I mentioned before this release, they were receiving 2. This is now the 1 email, and this is an example for a company user of that consolidated email. So we hope again that will decrease the amount of confusion that company users have about how to get started. So that's an example of that email there. Moving over to the right, this is an example of the email that you'll receive when the company has completed the enrollment process. And so you'll see here, it says it has the company information, and it says they're now ready to engage with your agency in SES. So that'll be, again, your prompt to log into the system and continue on with sending your information requests to that company. So that's all I wanted to show as far as slides are concerned. I do want to log into the system here just to show you. We're going to start with that quick enroll process. And so the very first thing I'll do here is I want to go over to the company search area. And I'm going to search for my company. I have their number written down here. And so just to put this scenario to practice here, let's say that I'm logged in as a Nebraska regulator, which I am, and this company, Beacon Financial Solutions, I'm ready to set up an exam on Beacon, or maybe I have a complaint for Beacon, and I need to go through the process of getting Beacon's very first company user into SES. And so I can see here, there's no SA contact, there's no complaints contact. This company has not been onboarded before. So what I can do here is get into this company record here. And when I do that, I'll call your attention to the lower left-hand corner here. This is going to look different than what you all are used to. And so you are used to seeing, we do populate the NMLS contact person. If there is a complaints contact listed on the MU1, which is an optional field, which is why this says assigned, but if there is anyone populated in that area in NMLS, their name would appear here. And you have the option here, as you can see, to quick enroll this contact. And so I'm going to click on this button here, or this icon. That's going to take me into the area that you all are used to seeing when you do enroll a company user. But you'll notice here that the email is populated for me, the name, everything that I need in order to enroll this user is already populated on my behalf. Just saves me some time with data entry here, and hopefully also will minimize any typos. And so really it's just a matter of verifying that this information is correct. I obviously have to be confident that Gary is the appropriate person to enroll for this company. But in this scenario, this fake scenario, I am confident. And so I'm going to click add user. And that does it. So that would send that one consolidated email to Gary, and he would then pick it up on his end and then complete that enrollment process. And then I, as the user who enrolled Gary, would get an email once he's completed that enrollment process for Beacon. So that's how the quick enroll process works there. That does not mean that you have to use this quick enroll process. If you've discovered that Gary is not the appropriate person for Beacon, for example, you can always go up here and click company user enrollment and initiate an enrollment for a different person. Just because it's listed here and it's available doesn't mean that you have to use it. You still want to make sure that you're confident in who you want to enroll for this company. The next thing that I want to show is the one-click reminder. And so as I mentioned, I'm going to talk here as I'm looking for this company, this next company. This is your ability after you've sent your enrollment request. This would be your ability to remind the company that that they need to go through and complete the enrollment process. So again, I'm on a different company record now, just to keep the examples distinct here. And the where you would go to be able to send a reminder to the company is in this company users section here. So for this company, I'll click on company users, and you will see here that I have attempted to onboard Julian here a few days ago, actually yesterday. And so if I want to send a reminder to Julian, letting him know that, hey, you have something to do here, it's just a matter of clicking this icon here. You confirm, are you sure you want to send it? And then you click send. What's nice about this feature is there is a show reminder history area here. And so you would have a kind of running list of all of the times that you've attempted to remind this company. So it's a bit of an audit trail here. And so I attempted to remind him earlier today. I'm sending another reminder about an hour later. The other thing to note here is that this audit is going to show even for other agencies that are going through the process here. So I would be able to see if I was logged in as, let's say, an Oregon regulator, I would be able to see this history that another user from another agency is attempting to onboard that company as well and is actively sending reminders to that company. So that's a little nice feature there. So that's all I really wanted to go over as far as the enrollment process is concerned. As Kyle mentioned, this is really just our first shot at the fixing the enrollment process and applying the feedback that we've heard from you along the way. With the Georgia release in January, there are a lot more changes to look forward to, and not just changes on the agency side, but probably most importantly on the company side. And so we look forward to showing you those changes as well in the future. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing here and let me pass the ball over to Kyle, and he'll take us through the next set of features.
Great. Thank you very much, Lindsay. As Lindsay mentioned, we've got a lot of features around that company enrollment process coming in the Georgia release. Just to let you know kind of why we didn't go out with all those changes in this release is, in short, some of the big changes just weren't ready yet. They took a little more development effort and they took a little more testing effort. And so we had a decision to make, and we asked ourselves, should we go out with this release with some of these improvements that make this process better and then fix the rest of them in the Georgia release? Or should we hold all of them for that Georgia release that's sometime coming in January? And we decided we should go out as soon as we could with the benefits that we had ready. So that's the decision we made, and that's why you see about half of those changes here, primarily on the agency-facing side, as Lindsay showed you. So I'm going to share a slide here, just kind of teeing up the next item for you. And hopefully you can see my screen. Lindsay or Ali, can you confirm that that's all coming in okay?
I can't see your screen yet.
Okay, yeah, it's acting a little strange. So let me try this again.
There you go.
Thank you. There's a strange behavior. Okay, so I put a slide in here. My two topics I'm going to discuss are a new scope design. So we got some feedback from agencies that the scope creation process was a little click intensive, and then we got a feedback item around some loan review screen designs. So this first one relates to when you're creating your scope. And like I mentioned, the feedback we got from users was there's too many clicks, and I don't always know which area for review to select when I'm building out my scope. So can you help me here? And the good news is this was a fairly simple thing for us to redesign. So we redesigned it in a way that I think makes it much less click intensive. But then we also, to supplement this design change, created some policy help documents that we put in the SES references library that I think really help show, depending on the business type that you're working on, show you which areas for review you should select and put on your exam in order to get those core and standards. So I'll kind of talk through that as we go. On the left side of the screen, I just want to point out something for you. I'm going to be demoing this for you in the training environment, and some of these numbers will look a little different than they will in production. So in your production system, in SES as you know it, you'll find in the references section in the SES library these resources with those following numbers. So for money transmitter, you'll find this area for review cheat sheet. It's ID number 63, for mortgage origination 62, mortgage servicing 61, and debt for the non-core items, it is 64. Those numbers will make sense here in a second once I get into the demo. So let me flip open SES itself and kind of show you this new design. So I'm going to show you the scope design from the standpoint of an examiner who's assigned to I'm the examiner in charge of this exam. You can see here it's an exam on Initech. I'm an examiner from the Washington Department of Financial Institutions, and you can see this exam is a money service business exam. So the lead in my state set this exam up ahead of time, assigned me here as the EIC, and I'm going to go ahead and click on Define Scope. So I come here and I realize this is where I need to start selecting my areas for review and putting all this other information in. And before I do that, I'm going to go over to my library. I'm going to actually hop back out of this. I'm going to go to my library and I'm going to pull out a reference that now exists in SES for all of you. So when you go, this is what I was talking about earlier, you'll be able to see these references in your in SES as you know it under the References tab. And we refer to them as cheat sheets for developing your scope or cheat sheets for selecting the right AFRs. And the numbers I had on that slide show you which one to pull for a given industry. In this case, my exam that I'm about to work on is a money service business exam. So I'm going to go ahead and pull open this reference and just see what we have here. We've uploaded these references as PDF documents to make it easy for you to preview them and have them open in another tab while we are going about building our scope. So hopefully you can see this document. Okay, I'm going to zoom in here a little bit. What these documents are just simple guides to help your EICs or your lead examiners go through and select the right AFRs for their exam. So you can see here, core areas for review for money service businesses exams. It's these 9 that you need to select in order to make sure you get all the core AFRs on your exam. So that's where they exist in the library. Back into the system where I'm setting my scope, let me go back and open that exam up and go back to that Define Scope screen. So for my Define Scope screen, you can see you just have to set in your standard kind of review period dates like you would. If you need to put in an asset review date, that applies typically to only certain types of exams. A financial review date, you can, if that is important to you, you can set the date for that. Those two are optional, of course, as you all know. And then the redesign section is down here in the AFRs. So if you recall previously, you needed to go in and select each AFR individually and then select Add New AFR and then go find it in the dropdown and then select Add New AFR and then go find it in the dropdown. And it was a long process and it created quite a long list of items here that you needed to kind of sift through. The redesign, we put all of the areas for review that you can choose from into this dropdown list. So I'm going to go back to my reference document that I pulled up from my library, and I'm going to take a look at the first couple that I need. So I know I need Agent Review, Bank Secrecy Act, Foreign Currency, and Foreign Agents. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to select Agent Review, Bank Secrecy Act, Foreign Currency, and Foreign Agents. And for those money transmitter examiners on the call right now, know that we are actively looking to split that up into 2 areas for review. So don't worry about that. Then I come back to my reference document. Looks like I now need Information Technology, MSB Financial Condition, and Management and Board. So I go back over to my dropdown. I look down here, MSB Financial Condition, Management and Board, and I think I said Information Technology. I've got 6. You can see here, I've got a running count, so I've got 6 to go, or I've got 3 to go. Permissible investments, prepaid, and virtual currency. And the last one is virtual currency. So with those 9 selected, what this means is I can kind of compare and make sure I've got them all. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 9. Got back on my screen, I can see I got my 9 AFRs selected. What this means is that if I and if you read on the reference document, this is basically saying if you select these 9 areas for review for a money service business exam, all of the standard core information requests that are in the system, which in this case came from the MTRA, will be populated automatically on your exam, as well as all the procedures that are listed as standard and core. So these areas for review are the ones that contain the standards and the ones that are listed as core, the standards that are listed as core. If your state has added your state-specific items and also designated them as core under any of these areas for review, the system would also pull those information requests or those procedures forward as well. So while these reference documents speak to the standard core information and procedures, they would also apply to the state specific if those items were underneath any of these areas for review. So I would say for those librarians out there, for those of you who in your agency are working on your state library, take a look at these reference documents in production, and you'll know for mortgage origination, mortgage servicing, MSB, and debt, which areas for review already contain the standard information requests and the standard procedures, and then you can know where to put your individual state-specific ones if you have differences. So that's a little tip there I wanted to make sure we pointed out. So I've got these 9 selected. Once you've selected your areas for review, you've got 2 options in this new design. You can simply confirm these selections by selecting Add Selection, or you can configure these details by selecting Configure. I'm going to select Configure just to point something out here. It opens up a fairly long screen, but gives you the flexibility of applying each of these different areas for review to the certain business types that you've chosen to include on this exam. So the exam lead in my state set this up for me and said, here are the business activities we're including on this review. I can then go through here and say, you know, some of these for agent review, perhaps it doesn't apply to transporting currency, for example. And I could uncheck that if I needed to. You also have the ability to remove the AFR if you need to by opening it up. The last thing here is once you've confirmed all your selections, you removed any that you don't want, you can mark scope complete just like before. You can save it in progress if you want to save it and come back later, or if you need to, you can send the scope for review to your supervisor. So I'm going to go ahead and click complete scope, and that is the redesigned scope completion process. So hopefully you kind of connected the dots between the design changes we made, which are just basically moving those AFRs into a multi-select dropdown, and the reference documents that we put in the library for each of the different areas for which we have standard information requests or standard procedures. Again, those business types are mortgage origination. Those came from the MMC handbook. Mortgage servicing also came from the MMC handbook. MSB, our money transmitter exams, those came from the MTRA work program. And then debt came from NACARA. So we've got those areas, we've got those items built into the system and put a reference document there available for you. I'm going to go back to my exam now and show you the remaining part of my demo, which was really just, I'm just going to stay in the system because I don't really have a slide to kind of to show this, but I think I can maybe describe the changes that we made. We got some feedback for those examiners who use the loan review functionality that there was a pretty critical missing piece of information on the loan review when you're working on a loan screen. So I'm going to stay logged in here. I'm the examiner in charge, Washington Examiner 1 of a different exam. This one has some loan requests on it. And just to show you real quickly the changes we made before I hand it off to Alejandra, we added the company name when you're working through a loan request. So you're actually conducting the loan review. So on the loan tab, I opened the 2 loans that this company has returned to me. So I'm obviously logged in here as the agency view, and this is the 2 loans that the company has provided back to me as part of my request. You can see that from this loan summary. We sent them 9. We've gotten 2 back, and if I click on this icon, I can come quickly to the two that have been returned by the company and open one of these up. When you click work loan request, this is when you would actually go in to start working on this loan request and going through the documentation that the company provided. The missing piece of information here was which company this was for and which exam this was for, which SAID this was for. And so from this screen, the feedback we had was sometimes we just need to, we need to be able to see the company name on the screen, and we would appreciate the exam ID number on the screen as well. That is that pop-out link if you need to, just keeping in mind, anytime you see that kind of arrow out icon, that pops out and opens up a new tab. And you can see upon clicking that, you've got access to the full exam record. So this is just the view of this exam record from within the loan request review screen. This is actually the full exam record with all the tabs you should be familiar with. So that was a pretty simple change, just adding that company name there to that. We probably normally wouldn't have highlighted this, but I wanted to highlight this today just because I think it does a good job of kind of highlighting the fact that if your feedback comes in and you're wondering why we didn't have something on a screen, we can always we can almost always add it. So don't be shy about providing that kind of feedback, especially if it's just add a data point here or there. Typically, we can get a hold of that. So I don't see any additional chat questions. I'm going to go ahead and hand this off to Alejandra Krasno, and she's going to take us through the next couple items.
Thank you, Kyle. Good afternoon, everyone. As Kyle mentioned, I have a couple of enhancements to go over with you today. The first one is this file share link feature that we added to the loan request functionality. And the other one is the enhancement that now allows a company user to download the exam information requests. With regards to the file share link, before the Louisiana release, companies had to upload each loan file that was requested for review individually. So for example, if you needed to review 10 loan files and you sent those to the company would have to go into the system and individually upload each documentation for the 10 loan entries individually 10 times. So this might not be a big concern for an examination that might not require a lot of loan files to review. However, if you are examining a large company and there are various loan files that need to get reviewed, say, for example, 30, 40, 50, or even more, then at that point, it would get cumbersome for the company to do that individual upload to SES of the loan documentation. And so now with the current enhancement, there is a link that that agencies can share with companies so that the company can go to this external site and upload the loan documentation there. And so that would make it easier for the companies. Now, before I provide a demo of the file share link and where it's located, it's important to for you to understand where exactly this file share link comes into place. And so on your screen, you can see the loan request workflow, which Kyle has gone over with you in the past. But just to briefly go over this, with a loan request, you would go to, you would use the existing IR process to request the initial loan list from the company, and you would use whatever template you currently use today to for the company to send you the loan list, for example, an Excel file. You send that through SES with all the other information requests, and the company would get that in the system, review the information, and populate the template that you shared with them with the completed loan list. Then they would send that back to you through the system. At that point, you would use whatever tools you use today to review the information and select the loans for which you're going to do that thorough review and for which you need that documentation from the company. Once you select the loans, then you would use the SES template that's in the loan feature in SES, and you would input that loan selection into that template. And then that will automatically generate in the system the individual loan requests. And at that point, that's where you would use the file share link if you wish for the company to use that external site to upload the loan documentation, as opposed to having and going into the system individually to upload each loan file in the system. So it's important to note that if you choose to use this external file share site, then that review is going to be done externally. So the company is going to use that site and not SES to share with you the loan documentation, and you would go to that site again to view and the loan documentation that was sent. You would conduct whatever review you conduct now, and then you would come back to SES and document your findings in the system. So I'm going to go now and demo this. I am right now in the system, and I am signed in as the EIC for my agency. And I have my supervisory activity set up. For purposes of time, let me show you where we are in the process right now. I have already sent the information requests to the company, including the loan file list. The company has sent that back to me. I have reviewed and made the selections of the loans that I want to review in greater detail and for which I need the loan documentation. And now that I have that information, I'm ready to start working on the loan request feature in the system. So here, I am going to go ahead and input the loan information. I could do that individually by going to add loan request and adding each field individually for each loan entry. However, because there are quite a few loans that I need to review, I'm going to instead upload the loan request in SES. So here's where you would download that template, which again, for purposes of time, I have already downloaded the template and inputted the information there. And I'm going to go ahead and upload the information for my company, Gateway Financial. And then we go ahead and upload the loan requests. And as you can see, the system automatically has created each of the loan entry. There are 39 loan files that I'd like to review. So I'm going to go ahead and add the loan requests. And then the system's taking me back to the loan request dashboard. And each of these fields will get completed as the loan requests are sent to the company, and we do that exchange with the company in the system. So now that we have our loan request, I'm ready to send this to the company. And so when I go to send loan requests, you will see here that we have now the file share link capability in the system. If you want to use this, instead of asking the company to go into the system and upload documentation for each of these 39 loans, then you would include here the file share link information. Again, it's really important to note that you need to set the expectation here for the company. And so it's important for the company to know that you are expecting them to use this file share link as opposed to doing that individual entry and uploading the documentation for each individual loan. And so it's important to add information here in the commentary and send that back to the company to make sure that they are doing that. So I'm going to go ahead and add that.
While Ali's typing that in, I would just jump in here and underscore that point that there are pros and cons with each of these two approaches. The individual loan file approach, where you're not including a file share link here, allows the company to provide the documents for each loan file one by one, just like they do on the information request. So they go and grab the documents, upload them to the loan request, send them back to you. That's a request by request process. If you include this file share link, you are essentially allowing the company to dump all of those borrower files into one location that you provide. And then it will be on you to sift through those and organize them and what have you. So this really relies on your judgment as the examiner in charge, knowing how your company is set up, what the appetite of the company is and the behavior of the company is. We're not telling you to use one way or another here. We're providing both of these options, but just know that there are certainly downsides with providing this file share link that you need to consider.
Thank you, Kyle. So I've added the information. The system has validated the link with the external site. And I'm going to go ahead and assign my due date for the company to provide the information. And you'll go ahead and send the loan request to the company.
So that last bit there too, or excuse me, we got a question in the chat that as Ali was demoing that last bit. For the file sharing link, do we have to use whatever FTP site is chosen by CSBS, or can we use one of my own state specific? We actually don't have a recommended file share link for you at CSBS or through SES. It is your choice and your agency's file sharing system that you would need to put into that URL. So you would have to set up a file sharing session. You'd have to get that link yourself. You'd have to and then paste it into that URL field on the screen. So yes, don't think that SES has now been baked in with some different file sharing solution. It is not. This is for you to use your own if you have your own in your agency, or if your agency is thinking about procuring one, now you can use that through SES if you want to. But again, I want to be very clear and express that if you do choose to include a file sharing link for the company to use that is outside of SES, then you just need to recognize that those materials that are coming in for those files you've requested will not be coming through SES anymore. They will be coming through that external file sharing site, and you'll have to go get those and reference those while you're actually reviewing the files through SES and putting your findings and documentation in through SES.
Kyle, did we get another question?
We did. We got a question around, does the individual loan file upload include using the Compliance Ease platform? The answer to that is a little more complicated than maybe we can get into in depth here, but in short, one of the information request items that you can add to your exam and is to provide the compliance, is for the company to provide their loan file through Compliance Ease. That's an optional question that I think is in the library, and you can add that to your exams if you are using Compliance Ease. Again, here I would say if you're planning to use Compliance Ease for the loan review process on your exam, it's really about setting expectations, making sure you don't have the wrong information requests on your exam, and in this part of the process, you may not use this section, but for the few files that come that get kicked out in that Compliance Ease process. There's a lot to maybe talk through there, and I would maybe encourage you to just reach out, or I saw who that question came from. I can maybe reach out and maybe set up a time to maybe talk through that a little bit more.
Nice, another question coming, Kyle, as well.
We did, yeah. We got one. I'm going to come back to. We got a question from the MSB side, the money service business side, who is seeing this functionality and wondering if it's possible to use this for, I think what they're calling agent review and vendor file requests. The short answer is I don't know that this is a perfect fit for that, but I think we can adapt what you're seeing here to meet your needs. So let's have a discussion about that. I see who submitted that. I'll reach back out to you and maybe set up a time to kind of talk through your use case, because I think what you're seeing here could be just tweaked a little bit and work perfectly for what you're looking for on that. And the last question we got was, when will the SES system be enabled for companies to bulk upload files to SES? This is our near-term solution for that bulk upload request that companies have. So in short, companies have said, we want the ability to just provide all my files to the regulator in bulk. By inserting a file share link here, you are allowing them to do that. They will take the list of loans from the system that you've requested. They will go gather all those files into from their backend system. They will zip them all up into a single folder probably, and they will drop them on that file share site that you've provided through this link that Alejandra just demonstrated. So that's the near-term solution. Where we don't currently have on the roadmap is anything that actually integrates with all the different loan systems at these companies to allow them to just say, send all these to SES. Given the vast array of different systems out there, that integration looks to be pretty complicated. But if you see a different path forward there and you have some suggestions on how we might enhance the system better, just let us know. We can take a look at it, of course. But this link is really our solution to that problem, at least in the near term, of companies needing a way to just provide all their loan request files, the requested loan files in bulk.
Thank you, Kyle. So at this point, after I have confirmed that the loan entries are in the correct format, I've added my link, then I'm ready to send the loan request to the company. So I'm gonna go ahead and send those to the company. I think one other important detail here is that we, as Kyle mentioned, have come up with this current enhancement, but it's part of an overall enhancement because right now, even though the company can use this external file platform, they still need to go into the system and go through each of these 39 loan files and communicate to the agency in the system that the loan files have been sent to the agency. And so I'm going to turn it over to Kyle to explain that a bit further and then also talk about the enhancements that are coming up in January around that.
Yes, thank you, Ali. Here again, we had a decision to make whether we move forward with kind of what we call half-baked functionality or wait until it's fully baked and deliver the whole set. So we made a decision to deliver what you're seeing here, the ability for you to add that file share link when you transmit the requests for loans, and that allows the company to provide that full set of requested loan files back in bulk. However, we were not able to get into this release a feature that allows the company on their end to go and say, in 1 or 2 clicks, I have supplied all the documentation for these loan files through an external system. I'm done here. Unfortunately, without that feature in this release, as Ali mentioned, the company user would have to go through each of the 39 files, or excuse me, each of the 39 requests, and either type, I've provided this, or upload another document to satisfy the requirements for that request to move through the system. We realize that's a significant downside. However, I do think it's still an advantage to having this file share link capability in the system, because this avoids the company having to separately upload each of these documents into each of these different loan request screens. They simply need to open each screen and say, sent through file share link or already sent you or what have you. That is sufficient to satisfy that request in the system, and they can then send those back to you. I hope that makes sense. Admittedly, it is a little confusing, but we wanted to kind of rush this file sharing link feature out to you now before the end of the year, because we did hear that there were some larger exams coming where companies might appreciate this, even though they still do need to go and open each request up and say, I have submitted this through the file sharing link, save it and send it. So that's, I would say I will close that by saying the feature I mentioned where companies would have the ability to kind of in bulk say, I have already submitted all these through a file sharing solution. I don't need to submit anything on any of these individually through SES. That feature will come in mid-January with the Georgia release. We're working on it now as we speak, and that'll, I think, kind of close the loop on this whole set of functionality. Back to you, Ali.
Ali, you're
Ellie, you are on mute. You need to unmute your line.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So with the company information request export, this is something, as Kyle mentioned earlier, that companies have consistently asked us for. We're very excited to be able to provide this ability to companies now to download the examination information requests. This will help them get organized internally and share information requests with team members that may not necessarily be actively involved in an examination, but that do need to provide the some of the information for that information request to be completed. So, as you know, on the company side, there are roles, different roles, just like on the agency side. And so the company lead role is the company user who has the ability to perform this export. The export is available to the companies on the information request tab. And there on the screen, you can see a screenshot of the export feature. It's located at the bottom right corner of the screen in the information request details tab. Once the company hits on that export to Excel button, then they're going to receive an email within a few minutes with the export in an Excel file. And then once they get that export file, they can tailor that as they see fit and to get organized internally. So we know that this is a feedback item that we would often get, but we know that also agencies would often get this feedback item. So if you get any inquiries from companies about this, now you can let them know that, yes, in fact, the information request export is now available in SES. Great. With that, I'll turn it over back to you, Kyle.
Thanks, Allie. And if you don't mind, just, yep, thanks. Like we do every call, we'd like to kind of close out with some honorable mentions, a few other items that we wanted to highlight that are in this release that we just didn't have time or really weren't worth a demo. Again, these full descriptions of these changes can be found in the release notes on www.csbs.org/about-SES. The release notes are, by the way, created in a fairly user-friendly format. They kind of have a simple layman's term description of what the change was, and then it includes a ticket number, which helps us kind of tie back to the feedback that comes in, because when we get feedback from you, we put tickets in our system to help us keep track of it. So that's what that reference number is. That's helpful too, by the way, if you have additional feedback based on an existing change that we've made in one of these release notes, referring to that ticket number may help us understand exactly what a little bit more about your enhancement request or your feedback item. So with that aside, a few honorable mentions. We've added some new user notifications scattered throughout the system, and I'm just going to tick off a couple of them here for you. We got these added in with this release, but again, go to the release notes to read a little bit more about it. The first notification that we added is when an information request or a loan request comes back to you after you have sent it back to the company. So we had missed that notification in our development, and appreciate the feedback from someone that said, hey, we really need another notification here on this kind of second try response from the companies. So that's now in. The second notification change is companies now get a notification when you send loan requests to them. A big shout out to our friends up in New Hampshire for pointing out this missed notification. I don't know how we missed this one, but believe it or not, when you sent the loan request to the company, they weren't getting notified. That is finally getting fixed in the Louisiana release. And again, thank you for pointing that out. It was a clear missed notification from our end. A third notification change we made is that agency staff director and staff user roles in the system will now get a notification when a company responds to a report of exam if you've allowed that response to occur. If you recall, when you send that report over to a company, you have the ability to choose whether or not the company can provide a response. If you allow them to do that, when they do eventually send that response in, you'll get that notification. The next one and the last one here is if a company does, and I think Lindsay may have mentioned this, if a company does not associate themselves with the company that you've enrolled them in, let me say that again. If a user does not associate themselves with the company that you've enrolled them in, then when they say, I'm not associated with this company, you'll get that notification telling you that they declined that association. So a couple other just honorable mentions. We've made some changes to the intake form on the consumer complaints side of the system. So if you're a consumer complaints user, go check those enhancements out or check them out in the release notes. We've also added an unknown option to the dropdown when selecting business activities on the complaint side. So if a complaint comes in and you just don't know the business activity, which does happen occasionally, you now have the ability to just affirmatively say, I don't know what business activity this goes with, but there's certainly a complaint here. The other one is we updated company communication resources. And I want to take a second here just to remind you that these are available. We provided a whole set of documents, templates, resources, references, kind of instructions for you as you embark on communicating with your companies about using SES for examining them. Whether you want to communicate with a full industry or whether you want to have a targeted communication with just one company, we have resources and templates to help you do that. And we updated those resources, which are all available out on the portal, to reflect some of these new company enrollment changes. We're going to be updating them again because we've got a lot more changes coming, like we mentioned in the Georgia release in a few weeks, but we wanted to make sure we kept them current with the Louisiana release. So those have all been updated. And then lastly, improvements to the company information request completion screens. We got some feedback from you all that companies were just forgetting or maybe not realizing that they needed to send back the information request responses after they'd completed them. I think they were just sitting in the ready to send status on their side, and they weren't seeing that they needed to do one more step, which actually send them back to you. So we redesigned a few of their buttons to make it a little more clear that they've got one more step before those information request responses are back in the agency's hands. And hopefully that speeds up that information response process that a couple of you have pointed out was just getting delayed because companies, they weren't doing anything wrong. They just didn't know that there was one more step in that process. So those are the final items here. I'm just going to do a quick scan of our chat and see if we have any other questions. Oh, we got a really good question in here. We are replacing our laptops. What is the process to get SES on our new laptops? Basically nothing. SES is a fully web-based system. And so unlike other platforms for supervision where you have to maybe install a bunch of prerequisites and do a bunch of IT gymnastics, if you can access it through if you can access the internet through your laptop, you should be able to access SES. The only thing that would be needed would be to reinstall your Okta plugin. I'm guessing as an agency user, you have a little plugin in your browser for your Okta credentials. You'd need to get that reestablished on your laptop, and I think that can be done just by logging in the first time through your browser. If you have any issues with that, please contact our help desk, our call center. They can probably walk you through getting logged in that first time on your new laptops. But from a hardware standpoint, there should be no real changes. So we got one last question here, and this is kind of going back to that loan review process. Does SES provide a third option for file upload for the company to use their file sharing link? Or excuse me, our agency does not have a file share, and there are times where a company has a file share system that they want to use, especially if the files are too large. In short, and thank you so much for asking this question. Yes, the system does have that feature. In order to use it, just send those loan requests to the company without a file sharing link on your agency side. So the steps that Alejandra demoed today don't include a file sharing link when you send it off to the company, because when the company is responding to you, they have the ability to provide a link for you as the regulator to access that file or that document in a file sharing solution that the company might maintain. So that exists on the loan request side, on the information request side. And we put that in, I think, in the Connecticut release to allow companies who have these large files that weren't fitting through SES to just put a link to it on the response screen. Then when that response comes to you as the regulator, you can just click that link on the response screen, be taken out to that site, and hopefully it's a login required type of site, and then the company's provided that data for you to log in. So yeah, In order to allow the companies to do that, just don't provide your own agency file share link. That allows them to use their own when they're responding to you, and you should be good to go on. And that brings us to the very top of the hour. I want to thank you all very much for your participation today. Hope you got a lot out of this. SES will be down this weekend while we're upgrading the system, but Monday morning on November 16th, you should see the new fresh Louisiana release ready to go. Thanks again, and have a great rest of your week. Take care.